Republic of Turkey and its foreign policy decisions coming up, what it's done, and what it should be doing. To frame this discussion, I want to center on three aspects: bridge, barrier, and buffer. Now these are three things I'm going to use to kind of shape my discussion of Turkey's foreign policy and how it affects the region and the things that are happening there that it needs to take a bigger action on. To get started with this discussion, I'd really like to give you guys a background of how Turkey ended up where it is today. A lot of how Turkey became the Republic of Turkey can be attributed to one man. That's Ataturk. He's the father of modern Turkey. Ataturk's government policy was one of secularism. He was not about an Islamic state because he had seen the autocracies that existed before. And even though he functioned in an autocracy himself as the head in more of a dictatorship role, he really stressed secular values in government, and he pivoted towards the West as his strategic partners during this time. His attitude of secular governance and military rule, in a sense, really stuck with Turkey. And you can see that with the string of coups that occurred starting in 1960, again in 1980, another in 1990, and then another, the first what people called modern coup was in 1997. So even as recent as 20 years ago, Turkey was facing this heavy influence from Ataturk coming. So let's get into it. Why is Turkey a bridge? What are they bridging? In many ways, Turkey is a bridge just because of its geographic location. It's the only country to touch both Europe and the Middle East. And so with that geographic location, there comes a lot of mixing of cultures and mixing of values. And we've seen this with Turkey's willingness to really try and get EU membership. But also we see this with their deep Islamic populations, and more recently their renewed economic ties with Middle Eastern trading partners, including Israel, Northern Iraq, and Iran. So what we see here is Turkey has a really interesting opportunity here. They can become more involved with the EU. Membership is going to be difficult, but I think it's something they should strive for. And I say this because if Turkey becomes a member of the EU, they'll be classified as a European country. And that brings along with it foreign direct investment, it brings along with it legitimacy as a democracy, it puts pressure on domestic politics to keep in line with the expectations of EU membership, and it also puts expectations from the Middle East, because now they have this country that's Islamic, that they identify with, that they've negotiated with, especially in Iran's case for hundreds of years. They have this country now that's associated with the EU, which has traditionally been this Western force. And I think it would be a really positive bridge between the European Union and the Middle East. And just bridging that gap, it's as much a geographic gap as it is an information gap, a political gap, because those populations do not understand each other. And Turkey's in a perfect place to provide that kind of connection where we could really see some advancement in European Middle Eastern relations. So now let's move into how Turkey can act as a buffer. And I see Turkey really acting as a buffer in political negotiations and getting in the middle of two kind of competing sides that don't really have much in common with each other. The two areas I see them being effective negotiators is in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and also in the Iran-US misunderstanding over nuclear weapons. I think Turkey is in a really good place with both of all the countries involved there, where they have kind of the credibility to negotiate and to, create the neutral ground where they can have those discussions. So Israel and Palestine, as an age-old conflict, but I think Turkey's in an interesting place right now. Even though relations have cooled with Israel in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of rhetoric about mistreatment of the Palestinians, and Israel's really rejected those kind of statements. And some of the statements were strong, so it's reasonable, and both sides have kind of played off each other. But withstanding that, Turkey and Israel have had a long, productive relationship as partners in the Middle East. They've done military exercises together. Their economies, even to this day, are very intertwined. They're growing each year economically together. So I think Turkey is in an interesting place right now where if they can patch up relations with Israel, they've already been having talks with Hamas, one of the leadership groups in Palestine, and I think those social capital, that a kind of leverage that they have with both groups is something that they can use to get them to come to the table together. Because it's hard when the United States tries to step in and say, this is what we need, this is how you guys are going to negotiate, because the United States is from really far away, and other Western countries try and push these peace accords onto these countries that they don't really have that much in common with. So I think Turkey is in a good place with both Israel and Palestine to work on solutions to some of those problems. The Iran nuclear question has been big news recently, and rightfully so, but I think Turkey has approached this whole entire policy question really, really wisely. What they've done is they've said, you know, we can solve this with dialogue. We do not need to pass heavier sanctions, we do not need to constrict, we don't need to put Iran in a corner, because that's how we don't get things done. They learned from the Gulf War when they passed heavy sanctions on Iraq, and Saddam Hussein doubled down on his repressive policies. It didn't change anything. And I think Turkey is wary of doing the same thing to Iran and empowering hardliners. And so what they've advocated is saying, hey, you know, let's get to the table. Let's get the dialogue. We have a cushion. They're not going to develop nuclear arms for probably years. And so in that time, Turkey thinks that they can successfully negotiate some deals to limit those nuclear exploits by Iran to just power and civilian usage. So these are big questions, and I think Turkey is in a better place to try and answer them. The United States has ruined its reputation with Iran ever since the Bush speech, where he called Iran part of the axis of evil. Our reputation with them has really been shot, and Turkey has remained peaceful with Iran for hundreds of years. They haven't had too many conflicts, and I think that they have a good rapport to build negotiations on and to really try and change, you know, that negative discussion and turn it into something positive. Because in the end, Turkey and Iran that are politically and economically engaged with each other is what is going to bring the Middle East out of this turmoil and into a more stable and successful period. Finally, let's talk about Turkey as a barrier. Turkey is a barrier in a couple different ways, and they need to be better in a couple different ways too. So let's start with the bads, and then we'll go to the goods. So what's really going wrong right now is Turkey's border with northern Iraq and Syria has been really porous. And what's happened there is that 20,000 jihadists have joined forces with groups like ISIS and some of the Al-Qaeda offshoots. And 3,400 of those 20,000 are from Western states as well. So there's a real problem there with Turkey not enforcing its borders. And that's something that, as a barrier, they need to be doing. They need to be providing that kind of, that wall that says, we're not gonna sit by while people pour through our borders and join these violent groups that are really committing terrible acts. So Turkey needs to be doing better with that barrier. They've done all right keeping ISIS out of their country, but I don't think that's enough. I think they need to be more involved with that fight and that decision to say, we're not okay with facilitating this movement and these people and the violence that they're promoting. Next, the other barrier that I think is really positive for Turkey is its membership in NATO. Being part of NATO is so important because there's a non-aggression pact in that treaty, and that is a wall if there's anything that can be called a wall, because no Middle Eastern country or group is really going to move militarily against Turkey, and that's really a strong barrier between the Middle East and the European Union and more Western countries, because Turkey is in a place where if they are attacked, if there's hostility that's trying to get to Europe, going through Turkey is not an option, and that's a barrier that is really important for the future of the region. Turkey has many important foreign policy questions to ask, now and in the future. But by acting as a bridge, Turkey can create meaningful ties between Europe and the Middle East, both politically and economically. By acting as a buffer, Turkey can get in the middle of sometimes hostile negotiations and find real solutions. By acting as a barrier, Turkey can take meaningful action against radical groups seeking to proliferate personnel and ideas across continents. By acting with strength, conviction, and wisdom, Turkey can change the region.